Hey guys, it's Victoria and welcome back to FemHead. Before I even start today's video, I just want to invite you to join in on April's session of my Chart Your Cycle course. It's basically for those new to FAM, new to charting, that want to learn the symptothermal method, and it's just kind of the foundation of what you need to know to get started charting effectively and safely and all that jazz. So if you want to know more information, I'll leave the link down below, and I'll also link my website up above, and go check that out. And you can email me with any questions or anything like that, but I just wanted to let you know about that really quick before we get into today's video. So what I want to talk about today, early on in the world of FemHead, I made I think it was like my period essentials. And that was more of things I like to have on hand during my period. But today I wanted to come on here and kind of actually talk about things I do or things I use to help make my period smoother, easier, nicer, whatever you want to call it. So I have 12 things I want to go through today, but the first one, and the one that I talk about all the time, is I give myself a break on my period. This means I try to not be hard on myself for not being as peppy and go-get-em as I normally am. I have talked about this topic by itself before so many times because just giving myself a break and cutting myself some slack on my period has had such a positive impact in my perspective and how I approach things and how I feel overall. It's just very positive. And going off of that one, my second thing is approaching things more slowly. This means things like how I structure my work for the day, what I do for exercise or whether I exercise at all that day, and even things like tidying up or cleaning up around the house. It's usually only the first few days of my period when I really need to focus on this, but I will sit down before my day starts and I will get really focused on what I actually need to get done, like what are the must-dos for that day, and I will make a short to-do list. And then once I get those done, however long it takes me to get those done, I can be done with it. I can be done with work, or I can continue on and do something else if I have the energy and the motivation and all that jazz. But if I want to be done after I get those things done, I will cut myself some slack, I will let go of the guilt, and I'll just be done for the day. Number 3 is sleeping just a bit more. I find that sleep is so valuable, not only for me on my period, but for me going forward into the rest of my cycle. If I let myself go to sleep just 30 minutes earlier, or if I'm able to sleep in, 30 minutes later, or even take a nap. Naps are still something I have such a hard time with, but there's usually a day where I could really use a nap, and I'm not to the point where I always allow myself that nap. But if I do allow myself just a little bit more sleep each day, especially during my period, I can see it carry forward through the rest of my cycle in such a positive way. People require different lengths of sleep and they function better off of, less or more. But for me, it seems like my solid baseline is 8 hours of sleep, if not more. Number 4 is to let myself be antisocial if it's necessary on my period. I can turn into a bit of a hermit on my period, and I'm just kind of a homebody as it is. I just want to be home, I want to be warm, I want to be comfortable, and sometimes I just want to be by myself. This is a time when I don't feel bad about either not making plans or saying thanks, no thanks to invitations to things. This is a time for me to kind of pamper myself, whether that's putting on a face mask, doing my nails, whatever it may be. This doesn't mean I don't do anything social while I'm on my period. Like, I still go out and I still hang out with friends and family, whatever it is. But if I don't want to, I have zero guilt in saying no to things that I don't want to do or don't have to do. Number 5, hot baths and heating pads. Any sort of heat is a go-to for me when I'm sick, uncomfortable, crampy, whatever it may be. I find warmth, and that just soothes so much. If I don't feel good, I'll take a bath. If I'm feeling blue or upset, I'll take a bath. If I'm cramping, I'll take a bath. I also have no shame in bringing my heating pad into my office, plugging it in and putting it on me while I sit and work on my desk. And my cramping's pretty mild these days, which is really nice, and so it only needs to be kind of pampered the first day or 2 of my period, and that's when I'll pull out the heating pad or really focus on those hot baths. Number 6 is loose pants or loose clothing. Even if my cramps aren't full-blown and super painful, I don't want anything tight around my midsection while I'm on my period. I have a few pairs of leggings that I will not wear on my period, even though normally they're very comfortable, just because they're tight around my midsection. So I definitely go with the looser fitting pants, sweatpants, whatever it may be. Obviously, you can't live in sweatpants all the time, especially if you have to leave the house to go to your job or whatever it may be. But this is definitely a time to just leave your like high-waisted, tight jeans in the closet. Or in the summer, dresses are very lovely as well. Number 7 is making sure I'm fully hydrated. This is something that I talk about, but I struggle with, but I know the importance of. And this is something that is important cycle round, but I find especially leading up to my period and on my period, I can tell such a huge difference between when I'm hydrated enough and when I'm dehydrated, because it helps so much with my cramping, my bloating, and just like my midsection in general. I've been really loving drinking lemon water to just kind of spice up my H2O intake, because I definitely get bored with water, but I've found that right now lemon water is like a great distraction. Like, oh, I'm drinking something that's not just boring plain old water. But there are some times where I just feel super thirsty and I will guzzle a glass of just plain water. And then the next thing is eating fresh fruits and vegetables. What I eat before and during my period really impacts how I feel on my period, and I can tell a huge difference between when I'm eating, fresh fruits and vegetables and when I'm eating processed junk food. And you can guess which one I feel much better on is like the fresh fruits and vegetables, and even if they're cooked, but just as long as it's not processed stuff, there's such a big difference for me between the two. Number 9 is eating light meals. I find that I do better with more small meals spread out throughout the day during my period and leading up to it, rather than I am known to have like 2 large meals during the day. And I just find that on my period and before my period, it's too much, it weighs me down, it makes me feel really just ugh. So I find that small light meals more throughout the day just is much better. Number 10 is period underwear and a menstrual cup. I am such a big fan of period underwear and cups, and I never would have thought I would have been one of these people. Once I made the transition from using pads to using tampons, like when I first got my period, I cringed at the thought of using pads. But for me, period underwear are very different from disposable pads or reusable pads. I feel much more secure in them, and I like that there's a different variety in absorbencies, so you can have very thin underwear for the light days, or you can have one with a bit more padding to help you feel a bit more secure on the heavier days. And I feel like period underwear are much less bulky and irritating, and I find that making the switch away from disposable pads and panty liners, like panty liners were a definite thing for me up until when I switched to period underwear, just because I needed that extra layer of something because I leak no matter what. But I found that so much irritation came from whatever was in those disposable panty liners that my lady bits did not like. So I find that making the switch to period underwear and making the switch from tampons to cups has really just made my lady area much happier. And I really have been enjoying lately on my lighter days, especially when I'm at home, just wearing period underwear and not having to deal with putting anything up there, and especially on very crampy days. I don't want to mess with putting anything up there. It seems to anger her, so I just wear period underwear and I just let her be. And honestly, it's gotten to the point where if I'm just spotting and it's not enough to where I need period underwear or a cup, and sometimes I just want to throw some toilet paper in there to protect my underwear. Number 11 is using cold water for stains and getting after it immediately. If you have a period, blood happens. It gets on stuff and it's fine. If you get blood on your underwear, on your pants, on your bed sheets, it doesn't matter. Just take that and go and run it under cold water. I find that just rinsing it out right away with cold water, you can practically rinse it out without any sort of scrubbing. And if I feel like it's very questionable whether I'm going to make it through the night without leaking or something, I will lay down a towel onto my bed. If I make it through my cup, if I make it through my period underwear, if I make it through my pants, which has happened before, there's a towel there, because washing a towel is a lot easier than washing a sheet and a mattress. And finally, number 12 is journaling and meditation. This is something that I try to do consistently regardless of where I am in my cycle, but I find that the effects of it are very beneficial and noticeable on my period. And just like I find importance in pampering myself and slowing down and putting the focus on me, I also feel like my period is a great time to kind of work through stuff and dig through stuff, and journaling and meditation is just a great way to focus on your emotional and mental well-being. In the end, I try to have a wholesome, well-rounded approach to my period. There are a few things on this list that are obvious quick fixes to your period woes, but a lot of the things I try to implement are much more long-term solutions. You know, the things like staying hydrated and what you're eating. But I find that those are the things that make a bigger impact than the quick fixes. And so much has changed for me from the time when I looked at my period as something just like separate that happened and it wasn't connected to any sort of big picture. But now it's a cycle, and I see the effects of the entire cycle and not just this thing that happens to me once a month. So now I'm curious, what are some of the things that you do to make your period go more smoothly? Write those down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to FemHead for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!